That's right, ladies and gentlemen, no clickbait here. I'm probably going to lose the farm in 2025. Look, here's the deal. We've been farming on our own, my wife and I, for 4 years now. Now, a little bit of background. My family's been farming in this valley for 110 years, but the family got big, split up, fought. There ended up being two sides. I was on the side that, was a farmer first, and then there's the other side that were business people first. And so there's a little bit of a difference there. And I'm going to use the pickup to block us from the wind a little bit. Now, in that being so, there's nothing wrong with just being a farmer, but being a businessman has become more and more important. And unfortunately, growing up, I wasn't exposed to that. The two sides of the family didn't really get along. We didn't talk a whole lot, and I didn't learn the business. And that's cost me a lot. Now, the reason I'm saying I'm losing it, and I want to give you context to why, it's just financially we're not going to be able to continue to do what we've been doing because it's just not going to work. Okay, we have failed and failed again. Many different enterprises, many different things, and honestly, personally, we've made stupid financial decisions, or I've made stupid business decisions in the farm. It just hasn't worked for us, and it sucks, but it's the way it is, and it's the way life is. Now, there's this possibility that we can save it, but it's slim. But how did we get here? So we bought this farm in 2021 in February, and we were super excited. We were super thrilled, and this place was a ranch, straight up ranch. I mean, we did not farm here growing up at all, and if we did, it was very little, planting some grass and stuff like that. We didn't farm, but quickly what we realized is after we bought the farm, we also bought some cows private label or privately from one of my grandpa's partners. We quickly learned that summer that cows couldn't pay the bills. We were going to have to farm. But 2021 also had some other problems. Part of the deal is we only had one pivot. Grandpa was supposed to put up the other pivots, and that was a handshake verbal deal. And you'll see that handshake verbal deals have got me in trouble more than one time. So we had this deal going through. He's going to put up these other pivots. That was in February. Comes along to March and April. My wife hits me one day and goes, "Hey, if we don't get those pivots put up, we're not going to make any money. You got to figure it out. We got to get those pivots put up." So then we start working. We start calling around. We get companies to say, "Hey, we're going to be there. We'll get them put up for you." Well, then they never show up to do the work. And with that, we continue down this path of trying to get it figured out. So in 2021, we had 170 pairs of cows here, 70 of our own and 100 of other people's. And so basically, the cows just covered the cost of the farm, and we were hoping that with that being the way that it was, that when we sold our calves that fall in November, that we would be able to have enough money to make our payment, because our payment wasn't a crazy amount, but we should be able to make good money on our 70 cows and be able to pay the payment. Well, it didn't work out. We didn't make enough money to make the payment, so we're already behind the 8 ball. So, but still at this point, my wife has a good job. She's able to go to town, make a little bit of money, and that helps. But in 2022 comes along, and we're still struggling, still trying to figure out how to operate the farm without operating capital, historical cash flow, credit, none of that stuff that the bank or a lending institution wants to see. So it comes down to that we found a company that would pre-contract our hay crop, which is awesome. And the hay prices in 2022 were super high. So that was awesome. So we got all ready to go. We had our old swather. We had a rake I borrowed from some cousins. And we had a baler that we got at auction. Now that baler is probably the bright spot of this whole deal, because it turned out to be actually a pretty dang good baler. But we started it in 2022. We're getting moving. We're getting going forward. Hay's expensive. Well, then the swather breaks down. First cutting takes us 30 days to cut, and instead of asking for help, my pride got in the way, and I was going to do it myself, and I was going to figure it out, and it just kept snowballing to the point where everything was so dry, it was worthless, it was crap. Second cutting didn't come back because the ground was so dry, and then right in the middle of the summer, the stinking pivot falls down. So we have our large pivot, it falls down, so we lose cuttings there, and at the end of the year, the company that we contracted with, turns out the guy, their representative, did this to a lot of people. He pre-contracted hay, and then up and quit the company. They never came and picked up the hay. They never did this. We were in communication with the company, but the guy screwed a lot of people. And so I tried to sell the hay outside of our contract with their permission to pay the bills. But when it came down to the end, I had 2 contracts that I owed money on that I couldn't cover. So I had more debt because I had bills I had to cover from out the summer because the hay never got picked up. And then our hay crop was less than we expected. And, you know, it didn't work out. It wasn't a very good year. Okay, 2 bad years. The 3rd year, we're going to have a good year. That fall, we actually got a new mortgage. So we got Grandpa paid off that fall with a crowd-funded farm company that they crowdfund your farm, and you can get money like loans and mortgages and other agribusiness funds to, you know, put into your farm. So that got done in November. The problem is we had a number we were trying to raise, but we raised underneath that. So basically we only raised enough money to cover the mortgage and some of the operating expenses we had, but we weren't able to pay everybody off that we owed. So, you know, that's just a mess. And then also in that year, in 2022, my wife quit her job that she was making a lot of money at because it was just way too much stress on all of us and it wasn't working out in the benefit. The only good thing about 2022 is that we had a fertilizer company that brought in an extra $26,000, and that kind of helped save our butt. So then we come into 2023. The fertilizer company gets a good start. We're making some money. We're doing some good things. And then we come around to first cutting. You know, we kind of got the operating stuff figured out. You know, hey, hay prices are good. We're going to make some money. Well, then in June, the rain starts happening. And the rain doesn't shut off. And our hay gets rained on and rained on and rained on. Our hay laid on the ground for 21 days, getting rained on, getting rained on. And so by that time, it was basically worthless. And then on top of that, while all that first cutting stuff was going on, the hay prices collapsed. They completely crashed. Hay that was selling for $250 to $275 a ton is now $100 or less. And that hay price just kept going down all throughout the summer. And I was hoping, hey, we'll hold on to it. You know, later in the year, we'll be able to sell it for more money. And that's all fine and dandy. But because that first cutting laid on the ground so long, second cutting was terrible. I mean, there just wasn't anything there. The ground was dry. We weren't able to get moisture back in it. So come along to third cutting, the voles invaded our farm, like completely, you know, destroyed our farm. Like nothing was growing. It wasn't even worth cutting, raking, and baling it. That's how little there was in the fields. And so that comes into the, you know, winter of 2023. The other problem is because the hay was so bad and the voles are so bad, we lost $100,000 in 2023. And I knew that we were going to have to refinance our debt because we needed money to cover that. Now, granted, we had plenty of equity in the farm, and we still have equity in the farm. But when I refinanced, I told them the number I needed. And they came back and said, well, this is all we can give you. So we were under that number, and I said, look, this is going to be a problem in the future. We're going to have to figure out a way to cover that gap. And at some point, you know, it just didn't work. But we were able to refinance most of it, kind of get on our feet, get set up so we could move into 2024. You know, we had more debts. We were struggling to pay things throughout the winter. And then we come into spring of 2024. I don't want to grow hay again this year. I want to grow something else. I want to do something else, right? I need to grow a different crop from hay because the voles are still everywhere and they're going to cause the same problems we had the year before. So finally, at the end of April, I was able to find somebody that we could contract corn with. But here's the problem. Lawyers are really cheap in the long run. This corn contract, and it's no fault of the people that made the corn contract. I didn't understand this corn contract fully. And so in doing so, now I have another bill that I have to pay. And that's not the worst of it. Because I was trying to, you know, be a good partner, and I wanted to help out these people that were growing corn or wanted us to have corn here, I wanted to make this farm as good as I could. So I tried to move some dirt, covered rock piles, and I was calling around trying to find some day workers to come help drive dump truck and cover rock piles and do things. Well, that led to a phone call to a guy that covers rocks for a living. That's what he does. And they were right down the road. They just finished a job, and they said, we can come there tomorrow. I'm like, okay, let's do it. You know, and when we first got it, we were talking and we were doing, and I got in trouble twice with verbal confirmations on this. I've also been working on the farm, refinancing throughout 2024. Verbally, somebody told me, you're good. We're going to get you taken care of. you can go ahead and do some of those improvements because I know you wanted to do those, and they're going to cost quite a bit of money, to the tune of a couple $100,000. And so we went ahead and did those upgrades. We moved all the dirt, covered the rock piles, cleaned it all up, made this look like a farm. Gained 45 good acres of farm ground that will get better over time. First off, I didn't have any agreement with the dirt guy with how much it was going to cost per hour, and we didn't talk about him updating me, and we just said, we're going to go and this is how much I want to spend, and we quickly exceeded that because it was about 10% of what we in total owe, and it just got way out of hand. And because it was only a handshake deal, there was no contract, you get down to the end of it and both parties are not really agreeing on what went on or what happened. And so, to no fault of his, I didn't understand or protect myself, and because of handshake deals, we have more debt. So basically what it's come down to is we've not been able to make a profit, and then on top of that, because of lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, now I have other bills on top of these bills. And so I still have equity in the farm, but the only way forward that we can see is probably selling the farm. What it comes down to is debt, and we're to the point where we're not able to service that debt, and it's just the way it is. And if you're farming and you start a farm, you got to be able to repay those debts. And man, we from the beginning, we have not been properly capitalized, don't have historical cash flow on the farm that what we needed, because it needed a lot of upgrades, it needed a lot of work. And then on top of that, you got us personally not having the best credit. We didn't know anything about, I didn't know anything about credit till I was 25 years old. It's a lot of those little things that just eat away at you until you are in a hole so big you can't even think. And so, yes, we're in a really bad spot. We're in a really tight spot. And I'm not asking you for money, and I'm not asking you to help. All I'm saying is, I'm going to keep trying my butt off to figure this out, to see if I can work on a way to continue to farming. Because I think, and I've been told by a lot of people, you're 1 year away. And right, you're always one away from being hugely successful. And so I'm not giving up. I'm not throwing in the towel. But we have some hardline dates coming up that we're going to have to figure out if there's a way to, save the farm. And if you want to know what those are, you're going to have to tune in next time.